Welcome to ECA, the Learner's Help. In today's class, we can discuss Chapter 3 of World Politics, US Hegemony. In the beginning, the chapter starts with characterizing three people, Aisha, Jabu and Andre. The significance of these three children are seen later on in the chapter, but we'll just look at their summary that is given in the beginning. Aisha is a child who is living in Iraq. She wants to pursue the career of medicine. She wants to become a doctor, but she's saying that she'll be only able to do or that pursue her ambition only after the foreign armies leave her country. Let's leave that there. We'll come to the next person, that is Jabu. Jabu is a person who wants to become an artist, but his family is actually forcing him to pursue the career of MBA or join MBA course. Next we come to Andre. Andre's family has actually come from Russia to Australia, and the situation is that his family is not allowing, or basically his mom is not allowing him to wear jeans, and Andre wants to wear jeans as he thinks it's cool. These three people and their lives may not be seem very relevant to you in reference to this chapter, but let me tell you, these three will make it very easy for you to understand the different structural variations in US hegemony, and we'll look into it later in the chapter. So when we begin with the chapter US hegemony, the main question that we ask ourselves is, when did US hegemony start? But that is something of a very controversial topic, because we actually do not know when actually US hegemony has started. Because when someone gets a power, you will obviously have certain actions that defines your power. But in the case of US hegemony, you have two instances in 1991 and 1945. But the thing is, in 1991, when USSR had fallen, US did not, being the only power left, it did not show any action that actually defines its power. So can we say that actually US hegemony had started in 1991? We cannot say that. Similarly, when we take the case of 1945, when the Second World War had ended, now there are two powers, USSR and US that time. But still we know that USSR lacked in many things, and that is discussed in chapter 2 in the previous videos. If you have not watched it, please go watch it. So when the USSR also had similar powers, it still had not been as equal, as powerful as US. So we can also say that US hegemony had also started in 1945. But similarly, that time also it did not show any kind of action that defines its powers. So when we ask ourselves when US hegemony had actually started, we can have two answers, either 1991 or 1945. Now we come to four main points under this chapter, and that is, I've summarized it here so that we get a clear image, and then we go into each of these topics in detail. The first 2 points will be discussed in this part, and the second 2 points will be discussed in part 2 of this chapter. So the first point is Operation Desert Storm. So as we can see, the common factor here is operation. What is operations? These are different strategies that are used by UN, and behind the power of the UN is basically US. So we can say that it is operations or missions that were taken forward by US in order to showcase its US hegemony or its power upon all the people in the world. So first is Operation Desert Storm. What was it? It was upon the Iraq attack on Kuwait. Iraq's attack on Kuwait, and it was also known as the First Gulf War. So this was named as Operation Desert Storm. So Iraq's attack on Kuwait, and it was also known as the First Gulf War, that is known as Operation Desert Storm. We'll discuss about it in detail later, but I'm just giving you a summary. So the first is Operation Desert Storm, Iraq's attack on Kuwait, and that's known as the First Gulf War. Now we come to the second point, that is Operation Infinite Reach. That is the power to reach infinitely wherever you want. Just remember all these points so that it is easy for you to note down when the question comes. So Operation Infinite Reach is the first one. Is the main point under this is Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda is a terrorist group, and we'll be discussing about this terrorist group often in this chapter. So understand this, Al-Qaeda is a main terrorist group, and this operation was against this Al-Qaeda's regime in two areas, that is in Sudan and Afghanistan. In these two areas, US actually attacked Al-Qaeda, and that operation is known as Operation Infinite Reach. Now we come to the third point, that is Operation Enduring Freedom, that is wanting freedom. So what kind of an operation was this? It was against the similar terrorist group Al-Qaeda along with another similar terrorist group, that is Taliban. So against these two terrorist groups an operation was held, and that operation's name is Operation Enduring Freedom. So again I say Operation Desert Storm, Iraq's attack on Kuwait, First Gulf War; Operation Infinite Reach, Al-Qaeda in Sudan and Afghanistan; Operation Enduring Freedom, Al-Qaeda and Taliban. Now we come to the fourth and the last point, that is Operation Iraqi Freedom, that is a freedom from Iraq, an operation that would give, as a result, would give freedom from Iraq. Why freedom from Iraq? Because US had actually claimed that Iraq had so much of destructive weapons with them, and keeping them would be very dangerous to all the people around the world. So in order to gain freedom for the people, the US actually had created this operation against Iraq. So these are the main 4 points that we'll be discussing mainly in this chapter. Once again, Operation Desert Storm, Operation Infinite Reach, Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom. Now we'll be discussing about Operation Desert Storm or First Gulf War in detail. So this is like the first action that defines the power of US hegemony, or it is where the people of the world actually understood that US is so powerful in comparison with so many other countries in this world. So how does this Operation Desert Storm start and what are the things within it? I have made it into points for easier understanding. So the scenario started in August 1990, and the situation is basically Iraq has invaded Kuwait, and UN, the greatest power of the world, had actually mandated Iraq to liberate or give freedom to Kuwait and leave the country immediately. But Iraq did not listen. So the next greatest power, that is US, is going to take a step forward, and the then president was George H.W. Bush, and he said that he's going to introduce a new world order, and that order is basically this operation that he's going to put forward, that is Operation Desert Storm. And what is basically this Operation Desert Storm? The meaning is going to start from here onwards. It was basically an operation that consisted of 6,60,000 troops from 34 countries. So how many countries had actually participated in this operation along with US? It was basically from 34 countries, these many troops. And what was the end result? They basically defeated Iraq. So what had Iraq to be doing? Iraq had to leave Kuwait immediately after this defeat. Now we come to the main point where it actually defines the power of US. When we look back at all these troops and the countries that supported US, we can actually see this troop was headed by an American general known as Norman Schwarzkopf. And what can we understand by this? When it's headed by an American, not only headed, but almost 75% of the force was from US. So basically it was showing the power of how much strength and strategy US had upon all the other countries in the world, that is able to put forward a troop with such a strength and actually defeat such a destructive country. Now with this action or with this operation, US had actually indirectly shown the world its power. And how did it show? The people started understanding the technological gap between themselves and US, the great superpower. So basically technological gap with all the equipments, all the weapons, all the destruction and all the troops, the head and all that chaos had actually showed the world how powerful US can be. And now we come to different names of the first Gulf War, Operation Desert Storm. It is known as computer war because in the war they had used smart bombs, so we can call it a computer war. Then they also call it as the video game war because there was television coverage for all the wars that were happening. So you can, in the comfort of your own home, you can actually see the war happening in the TV. So that is why it is also known as the video game war. There were questions in the CBSE question papers about why do we call Operation Desert Storm or First Gulf War as computer war and video game war. It's simple, very simple. You just need to remember these points. It's computer war because of the usage of smart bombs, and video game war because it was lively telecasted or there was television coverage during that time. So after all this chaos completely done by US or claiming to be done by the 34 countries, we come to the last point, that is US got a lot of profit from this operation. Its first operation showing its power. How did this profit happen is basically Germany, Japan and Saudi Arabia, three countries that supported the freedom for Kuwait from Iraq invasion, had actually rewarded or congratulated, as we say right now, to US by giving some amount of money in order to compensate the loss that US had. But in actual fact, US had not actually spent that much amount in the war. So it's basically a profit for the US after the war. That is why it said that US got profit after Operation Desert Storm. Now we come to the complete summary of Operation Desert Storm. It was the first Gulf War. It was started in August 1990. It was with so much of troops, with strength of 34 countries supporting US, headed by an American, and also 75% was US forces, and it also gave an understanding to the world that US is very, very powerful, and finally US gained a lot of profit. So before we talk about the second point, that is Operation Infinite Rage, we'll just talk about the scenario in America before this happening of Operation Infinite Rage. That is basically the Clinton years. What is Clinton years? Till then, that is Operation Desert Storm, till then it was the presidential years of George H.W. Bush, and even though he had won the Operation Desert Storm, he had lost the presidential elections in 1992 because of his lack of interest or actions or powerful reactions and strategies for the domestic affairs of the country or the internal affairs of the country. So the people got agitated and had not supported him during the presidential elections. But in that election, who came to power is William Jefferson Bill Clinton. He had won in 1992 because his strategies were more concerning of the internal affairs. So that is why Clinton years is also known as US being withdrawn, soft issues only, and concentrating more on internal affairs. Now, he had also actually won the presidential elections again in 1996. So the complete presidential period of Bill Clinton is 8 years in America. So what are soft issues? Soft issues basically are including democracy to be promoted all around the world. That was one of the initiatives taken during the Clinton years. Second is the climatic change, variation, talking about that stuff, and world trade. These three things, as it sounds, it's very soft. You don't have to have weapons or destructions for these kind of group meetings or debates and discussions. So that is what our internal affairs were main concerns of Clinton during those years. So that is why it is known as the Clinton years main characteristics. Now, when we talk about soft issues, we should also be concerned about hard issues, because we will be having a scenario where America also follows these hard issues. What were the hard issues? Basically, that is military and security. Military and security is considered to be the hard issue characters. But we cannot actually purely say that Clinton years were full of soft issues and there were no wars or no actions taken against any other countries by the US. There are two instances that show this. There are hard issues also followed during the Clinton years. Two main issues. The first one was in 1999. It was against a response to the Yugoslavian action upon the Albanian people of Kosovo. So the people who are living in Kosovo, the Albanian people who are living in Kosovo, was attacked by Yugoslavian people. So that action, as a response to that, US had actually done a bombing for almost 2 months with the help of US Air Force upon the Yugoslavian people. So again, in 1999, Yugoslavian people attacked Albanian people or Albanian dominated Kosovo, and as a response to attack Yugoslavian for this action, the US started bombing with the help of US Air Force for 2 months. That is the first main thing that actually happened during the Clinton war that can come under the category of hard issues. Now we come to the main point, or we can also be defined as the second point of this chapter, that is the Operation Infinite Reach. So that is during the Clinton years, and the year was in 1998. So what was this? It was basically a response to the bombing of two US embassies in Nairobi, Kenya and Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. It was done by Al-Qaeda. As I told you before, Al-Qaeda is a terrorist group, and this terrorist group had actually bombed two of US embassies. Where all? In Nairobi, that is in Kenya, and Dar es Salaam, a place in Tanzania. These two places, US embassies, were bombed by Al-Qaeda. As being attributed to Al-Qaeda, it has to be destructed by US as a response to that action. So what did they do? They went and attacked Sudan and Afghanistan, where their regimes were prevalent. So that is known as Operation Infinite Reach. So with that, we come to the end of part 1 of chapter 3, US Hegemony. Thank you for watching. If you find it informative, please subscribe to the channel, share with your friends, like and comment down below.